Member Pidgeon.
Mr Mayor, we've talked this morning about the future of the Met, and one of the most pressing issues facing policing in London going forward is the issue of knife crime. We've seen, I think, 31 fatal stabbings this year, and knife crimes increased by around 30%, I think, in the last year. You recently released your long-awaited knife crime strategy, and in it you announced the establishment of an 80-strong specialist team to tackle this issue. Which teams are these police officers going to come from?
I suppose just making the point, because we need to say, because otherwise it's a travesty to the victims. Every death on the streets of London is a tragedy.
Absolutely.
Every time a young person decides to carry a knife, that's a failure as far as I'm concerned. So there already is a team working on what's called Operation Sceptre. And what we've done is we've accelerated what they're doing. So we will now have at least once a month them targeting high knife crime areas, uniformed officers, plainclothes officers, specialist officers who can identify who's carrying a knife. We'll be targeting known offenders using Section 60 as well as the usual stop and search powers to make sure we have sweeps of weapons. We stop, search and arrest those carrying weapons, but also target shops and online as well to stop the sale of illegal knives, but also legal knives being sold to underage people. This team already exists, and Craig can give you the details of the breakdown, but these 80 officers already exist, so we're not having to bring in additional officers. What we're doing is a similar point I made to Member O'Connell, reprofiling the work they do, so they're targeting this particular issue of knife crime. I'll just give you a context, by the way, which is that across the country there's been an increase of knife crime. It's not simply a London problem.
Yeah, no, I picked that up on the radio this morning. So this is the same team that was announced in May around this operation, and they're full-time working on this. They're not just once a month doing these initiatives.
No. So Sceptre does happen once a month, and we've got it planned out throughout the year in terms of doing it. Every one of the London boroughs has what we call a 4Ps plan. So they've got specific areas they'll be doing on pursue. So how do you catch people? What do you do about prevent in terms of doing it? How do you protect people? So right across those things, every one of them has got a knife crime strategy.
And where are these officers from?
The officers are a mixture of territorial policing and serious and organised crime. So the SC&O world. It's those two business groups coming together. I think some of the Police and Crime Committee members will have met Commander Duncan Ball and Commander Musker, who've been leading on this work across those two business groups. It's the teams of people that work for them around the dedication around this work. So new Commissioner has been very strong on this. It goes back to a point made by Assemblymember O'Connell about a clear priority is around violence. Knife crime's too high, it's got to come down.
OK, lovely, thank you. And Mr Mayor, how will you measure progress on knife crime going forward? You've got your strategy. Are you looking at having some kind of target at all for reducing knife crime, or what's your plan? Well,
you'll be aware of the dashboard that exists on the websites. There are 5 boroughs which have higher knife crime than other boroughs. We're working closely with the borough leaders there. We've got 300 now school safety officers working in schools. We've also made other offers, whether it's ones being offered to schools, whether it's the gang exit strategy, whether it's the youth workers in major trauma centres. And so it's obvious, there are obvious ways of measuring numbers of knife crimes, numbers of people injured, weapons seized, numbers of actions taken against those selling weapons illegally, action taken against those selling online. So there are a number of different ways of measuring success. The key thing for me is reducing the fear of knife crime and reducing knife crime.
OK, thank you. Thank you. Look forward to seeing that pulled together. And then the other issue is, in your strategy, you talk about having a local knife crime plan for each borough. How are you going to engage Londoners in that? Because the priorities that were set per borough, quite frankly, we were quite concerned that it felt very top-down, the council leader, the chief exec, MOPAC, rather than the community and those groups being involved. So how will the communities get involved in that?
Do you want me to take that?
Or the mayor?
So the work that's gone on at the moment in terms of the development of those plans that are borough-owned, if you like, at the moment around the police, has involved some work with advisory groups, leaders and others in local boroughs around what are the issues, where we go, and then some of the groups we worked with around things like diversion schemes and some of those. And you've seen some examples quite recently where we've been out talking to groups of young people, and talking to people in London around, go on, what is actually going to work in our area. And I just give a real endorsement to colleagues in MOPAC. I don't know if any members here were involved in the consultation on the knife crime strategy, but it was extensive. I've got to say, as someone who's done this a few times before, I was impressed with the range of stakeholders they brought into that debate around what are the real things we can do, what do we know that works, and how do we get away from this thing where people say, well, in my part of London, the only thing that works is football or youth groups or something like that, and in this part of London, something else works. Where's the hard evidence if we're going to invest public money in these things?
And just to reassure, we've spoken to hundreds of Londoners, to community partners and to other members of the community as well before we drafted the knife crime strategy, which is why it took us longer than we'd otherwise have done.
The borough ones as well, thank you.